Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Marketing Fast and Furious, 3 Ways to Shift to More Agile Marketing Planning. We've got a pretty lively discussion lined up for today with our esteemed panel of speakers. It's going to really be more of a live discussion rather than us presenting formal slides to you, so that you can really hear our sort of firsthand thoughts on this topic. So really looking forward to diving into that shortly. Without further ado, why don't we go ahead and introduce ourselves and say hello to our panel today. So I'll go first. My name is Julia Stead. I'll be your host today. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Allocadia. I've been at Allocadia for about a year now, and I am based in sunny Santa Barbara, California, although my team and our company is headquartered in Vancouver, Canada. I'm really excited to be here today and to chat with the folks on the panel. Next, I'll pass things off to Marina. Marina Antistenis, why don't you introduce yourself and welcome.
Hey, welcome everybody. So in my current role, I lead the overall marketing strategy for Comcast Business for the Mountain West region. So as their marketing director, so I have oversight in 4 markets: Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona. I'm responsible for not only driving demand for our SMB and enterprise sales organization, but I'm also responsible for helping to accelerate those opportunities that are already in the funnel to close. In addition to that, I also support our base management strategy and our base management organization to make sure that we're driving more upsell and cross-sell conversations with our existing customer base. I'm based here in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado, and it is beautiful here today.
Well, thank you for joining us. You also have a lovely background. I like the art installation. Yes. Awesome. Welcome again. Garth Bradley, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Julia. Great to be here as well. I'm located here in San Francisco Bay Area. Not quite as beautiful a day here, as we've got a little bit of smoke from a lot of fires happening. So a little scary that way, but I am Vice President of our integrated marketing team at Workfront. Workfront is a work management solution for managing all of your work across your business. And within my team, we've got an integrated campaigns team that runs our key campaigns. We've also got content as well as digital demand generation. So all of our digital channels, paid search, paid media, email, webinars, anything that you do online.
Awesome. Well, great to have you, and can't wait to hear your thoughts. And then last but certainly not least, Doug Sechrist, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Julia. Great to be here. I'm in Austin, Texas, and it's super hot here, so probably not nearly as nice as San Francisco. But I run growth and demand at Zenefits. For those of you that don't know who Zenefits is, we are a HR benefits and payroll software company for small businesses. My purview is really everything growth and demand. As my title suggests, I oversee our content marketing teams, our performance marketing operations. And given we're in the small business sector, we've kind of got two go-to-markets. One that we call our assisted, so it's where we're generating demand for a sales team, and then we also sell our product online, so much more of a product-led strategy, which requires some intricacies in the way we approach planning and really think about our go-to-market. So super excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, can't wait to pick your brain on that. So let's go ahead and dive in. Just to kind of set the stage and tone for what we'll be talking about. Marketing planning has changed dramatically, and the elephant in the room, or we'll just address it sort of front on, is since the pandemic hit back in March, the way marketing organizations have had to plan has basically sort of been blown up and rebuilt on the fly. What used to be our sort of traditional annual planning processes and quarterly planning processes have now shifted to weekly, monthly sort of micro planning cycles. And at the same time, the majority of marketing organizations are also faced with a little bit fewer resources, sometimes a lot fewer resources, and pressure to perform still with fewer resources. And then also we've all been faced with remote collaboration. And so previously, maybe some of us were remote, but there was still the concept of getting together for annual planning, for quarterly planning, for some of that deep collaboration when it comes to planning, and that's off the table. So a lot of things have changed, and I think maybe there are some interesting, exciting opportunities with it, but also some challenges that have been presented to us all as marketers. So with that, I wanted to pause for a second and just take a poll from the audience here to better understand what have been your biggest challenges in planning this year. And when we say this year, it's basically since the start of the spring, sort of the past 6 months when our world changed dramatically. So if everyone can just take a moment to put in your votes there, and we'll just get a sense of what are sort of the hot one or two hottest topics that we can make sure to cover and dive into a little bit more in our discussion today. So not too much of a surprise, I'm seeing a lot of votes come in around keeping up with constant changes to the plan. I think that goes back to the idea of we used to do things on an annual, quarterly basis, and now things are constantly changing. And then also seeing pretty fair distribution then across the others around scenario planning, knowing where to shift investments, and team resourcing. So I'll give folks another moment or two. If you haven't voted, please go ahead and get your vote in. And then we will wrap that up, and I will share the results here. So there you see, by far the winner was keeping up with constant changes to the plan. So we'll make sure to touch upon that as we dive into our discussion. So first topic that I wanted to launch for the group, we just did our audience poll, there we go, is how are you shifting your approach to planning? So I alluded a little bit to some of the ways that planning has changed, but what specifically has changed in your world and in your approach to planning? Garth, maybe, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts on this one?
Sure. I mean, I would just say that in this new normal, our view of planning has shifted significantly. There was a time when business planning was only an annual thing, and now it's very much even beyond a quarterly thing, but it's quarterly, and it's really continuous now as we are adapting to some of the new things. So, in terms of an example of that is we were coming into the last quarter really focused on in-person events. And obviously that we had plans for those that had been part of, maybe 30 to 50% of our lead volume that we were planning against. And of course, all of those were moved either virtual or canceled. And so shifting really quickly to all virtual and to webinars, to digital, to make up that gap was something, it required a significant strategy shift within the team. And it also shone a spotlight on our digital efficiency, right? Like how efficient was digital in terms of driving the types of leads that we needed and the number of leads that we needed. And so I think that drove a lot of our planning from a long-term approach that had to just shift immediately. So, and then I don't know, so yeah, that's kind of some of the main shifts I saw.
So it sounds like then long term's kind of off the table, and really that shift to everything being focused on short term.
Yes, I would agree.
Were there any specific processes or tools that you've adopted across your team to help get that focus more on the short term planning or work collaboratively?
Well, thanks for asking that one. I will say we are fortunate at Workfront that we just released 2 new products that have helped us in doing this. One is called Workfront Align, and the other is called Workfront Scenario Planner. I swear, Julia, and I didn't set up on those questions at the beginning. But,
I'm going to ask everybody this question, so yeah.
Yeah, so, but the scenario planning, so really, in the course of getting these products to market, we had an opportunity to speak to many marketing professionals about the future of planning, and the main themes were always, we need to connect strategic goals to work, and making sure that everyone is prioritizing the right work, and that we're being able to track and monitor progress against strategic goals. So the entire organization is then on the same page and is aware of the progress being made. And then, our plans are only as good as the goals that drive them, and being able to have that visibility into them is key. So, those are some of the tools, things I would just highlight that, when your strategy changes, you have to be able to nimbly change your plan midstream. And I think the scenario planner has helped us a lot in that, because then we're able to see the, what would the impacts be of shifting our dollars from in-person events to digital and getting that visibility into all the different work that's happening. So I'd say those are a few of the things. I will give kind of an example from Penn State, one of our customers. They said that strategy and execution can be done in isolation, but we need the ability to iteratively prioritize and plan while ensuring every person involved in the associated work knows exactly where to focus their efforts. And in today's fast changing environment, achieving this kind of agility and focus is absolutely critical in doing that. So.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be a theme that emerges. I know it's something that we're very focused on at Allocadia, and our marketing organization is focus, right? You've got to move quickly, you've got to execute quickly, and you can't do that if you've got 20 different things on your plate. You kind of have to narrow the list and to be able to move fast. Let's see, Doug, really curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, you bet. So I think, maybe a different perspective from Garth and Workfront, where we serve small businesses. So the vast majority of our marketing is digital. So we didn't have events that we needed to reschedule or rethink and things like that. The other thing, and I think maybe we had a leg up on planning here, is we are such a fast-paced transactional company. We live and die by the month and even the weeks sometimes, right? So we are fairly, we plan a lot, and we have an operating plan that we review, as a sales, marketing, finance, product team very frequently. And a lot of what we do is testing. So, but it definitely, when the pandemic hit initially, we had to rethink, what does this mean for the segment we serve? Because small businesses were as impacted, if not more, than enterprise segments and other areas of business. So we very quickly in March sort of shifted our thinking from, just pure growth and acquisition and conversion to more of an empathetic, how do we help keep small businesses in business? And, huge kudos to our content and organic teams for really leading with, we're going to quit putting content out there about us, and we're going to put content out there about, how do we help small businesses get PPP loans? How do we help them deal with a lot of the things that are, inevitably going to change with remote workforces and, having to deal with furloughs and, a variety of other things that came about for the pandemic. So we definitely shifted. We probably tripled our content output. And the upside to that was not only were we helping our segment, but we were also driving our organic volume, 3x, 4x, and really starting to drive way more traffic than we ever have historically been able to do. The other thing we did is we got creative on, in addition to helping them with resources, how do we help them with cost, right? Cost is a huge thing. So we offered our product for free for a year for any small businesses that need it. And again, the upside for us on that is, we reached people that, theoretically or historically haven't come to us, but they saw a great deal. It also helped us with, anyone taking our product for a year, that buys us a year to serve them, get them activated, and so on. And I think the other thing we did from a planning perspective is it really forced us to look even more closely at, the channels that work, the segments that work, and those that don't. And more specifically, with the pandemic, different industries, were hurt far more than others. So, we took a lot of what we did from a campaign standpoint and from a targeting standpoint, and started to hone in on, higher probability segments, for example, like healthcare or cannabis or other companies that are doing really well during this time, and really letting our content efforts support the broader community.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's neat to hear how quickly your team adapted to the opportunity. For lack of a better phrasing of it. So it sounds like you had great planning systems in place already, and you were doing more that iterative weekly, monthly planning. Did anything change because it sounds like, but what you were actually, the work you were doing is what changed more than the processes. Did you make any changes, again, whether it's systems you were using or processes or styles of collaboration to sort of wrangle those changes, you know, making the quick shifts in which industries you were targeting, or which product offerings you were sort of scaling back or pushing more?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't like tools. We didn't really change anything, but I think from a process standpoint, and just from a, you know, like, we were a business impacted as well, right? Everyone's remote, and we weren't as good at being remote. So I think it forced us, you know, I'd say the two things that became really apparent is we had to be super transparent, you know, across all teams and channels and what we're doing. And we had to figure out ways to align on where are we going to make investments, where are we going to make changes, how is this going to impact other teams, you know, down funnel, up funnel, all those types. So I think it forced us to get really good, really quickly at collaboration, and just, you know, kind of being empathetic to other, you know, dependencies that we've got within the company, you know. And I think that, you know, so we probably meet twice as much, but the meetings are much more concise and clear, as opposed to meetings for meeting's sake.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think those are some of the things we had to do internally to change the process.
Yeah, great. Great to hear. Marina, let's get your take on this one.
Yeah, I think, you know, kind of just to dovetail what Garth and both Doug said, as well as I think with Comcast, Comcast Business is part of the big umbrella of Comcast Cable, right? And so, you know, we're a Fortune 50 company. We're going after not only the SMBs, as well as our enterprise and mid-market space. And so definitely saw the shift in our SMB and how we were going after that market. But I think for us, you know, we quickly pivoted from those in-person activities to also a very virtual activity fairly quickly on our side as well. And I think just being agile in our planning to make sure that we're addressing the market where it's heading versus being really reactive on that. We do our annual planning at the beginning of probably around May, June timeframe for the following year. And so our goals don't change for the year. Basically, those are already established goals. It's how we go about achieving those goals that have changed for us. And one of the things that we've done pretty quickly in shifting is just targeting different audiences that we're going after. Traditionally for Comcast Business, we've gone after those IT buyers. And look, with a lot of the folks here, you know, we all go after the same buyers. It's IT directors and above, basically. But what we were trying to do and really starting to pivot is testing out different messages and different content to different audience members. So with COVID hitting, we're starting to see a lot more decision makers early on in the process that we normally haven't seen. And so we usually start with IT, but now we're starting to get really targeted with our business operations, our sales, our marketing, even HR and finance, given what we sell, is making sure that the customer experience is taken care of, as well as that employee experience is taken care of, given the fact that everyone's working from home. So you have the right technology to work from home from a bandwidth perspective, from a voice perspective. So a lot of those tools we've actually shifted and actually going after just a different audience and making sure that we're addressing the entire buyer's journey, not just those IT buyers that we've traditionally gone after.
Yeah, it's interesting, and what an interesting time to be, well, going through annual planning. A lot of businesses maybe don't start quite as early as Comcast does, but are starting to get into that now. Is there anything that you're learning or that you are doing differently as you're navigating the annual planning process right now, knowing that the economy is rather uncertain, to put it mildly, and not quite sure how the next year is going to play out?
Sure. Yeah, great question. We call at Comcast, we have our budget season. It literally is 3 to 4 months of planning on our end. So we plan from the region to the division, as well as our HQ team. So it's quite the lengthy process, as you can imagine. So it definitely starts a lot earlier than most organizations. But with that said, I think what we've learned with COVID, with kind of being able to pivot, is what's working and what's not. where traditionally we've been a very in-person focused type organization. So, we have our in-person events, our conference, our webinars, whatever it is. However, now we're starting to see some markets that I'm responsible for, they react differently. Where, in Colorado, we have noticed that our prospects and even our existing customer base prefers that virtual experience versus we have some markets in the Utah, New Mexico area where they prefer those in-person interactions. So those are some of the learnings that we've taken away over the last couple of months that we plan to apply as we go into 2021, where we're going to make sure that the Colorado activities are going to be a little bit more virtual and then make it available to also the other markets. But then the in-person ones in Utah and New Mexico, how do we also create that hybrid experience potentially where we'll do something in person in Utah, but be able to live stream it, quote unquote, to our other markets so that everyone gets access to that same content and same thought leadership. And so I think that's kind of the things that we're starting to learn and shift based on our audience preference and our market preference.
Yeah, that's neat, right? Isn't it? I find it fascinating the things that we're learning by having to navigate this pandemic, the sort of different ways of looking at our audiences or our go-to-market strategies that just hadn't bubbled up before. I'll chime in with my sort of quick take on this one as well. One thing that we're definitely doing differently at Allocadia is when it comes to our budgeting, have gotten much looser about what we're committing to. Whereas previously, so we have an annual budget and then it's broken down by quarters. Whereas previously at the beginning of the quarter, our budget was pretty much locked in for the next 3 to 6 months even, and we felt totally comfortable and confident in that. For now, I've got my kind of my plan, which is sort of the amount of money that we have available to spend, and then our forecast of how much we actually think we'll spend. And the plan is pretty well built out for each quarter and beyond, but we're really keeping it loose on how much we're forecasting to spend each month until about early to midway through the month, because we're moving things around so much on that sort of weekly, bi-weekly basis. And so I've got a higher comfort level with my team sort of saying, hey, here's theoretically how I think I'm going to spend my money over the quarter, but basically I'm only really confident in the next month. The next 2 months, I'm going to keep moving around as different opportunities sort of bubble up or as I see success in one area or another. And so it's been a little bit of a process and mindset shift that we're all just kind of getting more comfortable with. So let's move on to the next one. How are you introducing more agility to your planning efforts? This could be, I feel like there could be a lot of things, but let's hone this into sort of one key thing that that you've started doing differently in your marketing organization. And this one, Marina, actually, let's kick it off with you this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's pretty simple. It's, we continue to plan on a quarterly basis, quarterly in advance, and sticking to our yearly goals. But what we've actually put into place is our just in case plan as well. So I think, that on your poll, a lot of scenario planning of, what's going to come, what do we kind of, head towards. So that's something that we have put in place. If we decide to do an in-person or a hybrid event, if we have to pivot very quickly, we have been able to do so, having all the technology in place as well. So we are big on that just in case plan on our side, because you never know what's going to happen right now and how things will react. So, something might be happening in Colorado and it's not happening in our Utah market or even other regions where I think the expectations are a little bit different from, the community. When you go from city to city, state to state, things are very different. And so we want to make sure that we are accommodating to our market and what they need and how they want to participate with us. So I think for me, it's really having that just in case plan in place.
Yeah. I like the name of it, just in case. Just in case. Yeah. Great. Garth, what's your take on this one?
Yeah. So it's a little in line, Julia, with what you're talking about in terms of thinking about budget and then impact. So we're trying to be a lot more agile right now by determining how we can make the biggest impact with our resources, both people and budget. And so in addition to planning our pipeline from the top down, right? Like, here's the revenue we need to hit, here's the leads we need to provide to do that. We're also providing that bottom up view because things are changing so much that we can't count on the same things like in-person events, but there's even digital tactics are changing right now a lot. So being able to provide the business with that view of, hey, you know, the type of leads you're going to get now are a little bit different. And if we don't make some changes quickly, we may actually miss our numbers, is a role that marketing can play right now that is so important to their business. And that's been a lot enabled, you know, we built that model, but then we use Allocadia then to kind of track all the different shifts that we need to make and what the impacts will be. So that's been a really valuable tool in doing it. And I just give an example, you know, kind of more specifically is, you know, you think about those digital channels, they're so much more flexible. And, you know, we're able to make changes and shifts in pretty much real time in terms of, okay, social is now doing a great job of reaching enterprise level customers that we really need. And it's doing it at a cost per lead that is much lower than, let's say, paid search. And we can make shifts in pretty real time doing that, but you can really mess things up. If you make a lot of those quick shifts, your budget can get messy really quick. And so being able to track the work, and we're using, of course, Workfront to do that, and then the budget in Allocadia together is allowing us to be able to do that in fairly real time without causing too much chaos across the teams, so that they understand the shifts that we're making.
Yeah. Neat. And that is, yeah, it's such a blessing with digital, how easy it is to hit pause, dial up, dial down. I've spoken to a lot of marketing leaders, even myself included, that felt almost a bit of a sigh of relief when events were kind of wiped out for the foreseeable future, because they take so much budget and they're locked in for so long. You can't be particularly flexible when it came to the more traditional annual calendar of events and what you had to pre-commit to, you know, 12 months in advance or so on. So it's opened up some interesting new opportunities for sure. Doug, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, similar to both Garth and Marina, and I love the just in case plan. We call ours the C19 and the C19 V2 plans. So we've got, you know, a couple different scenarios. And I think I mentioned this before, but, you know, for us, you know, it's having those scenarios, and then it's having like really crystal clear transparency and alignment across all the stakeholders that have a role to play. And then being in lockstep for, you know, what we're seeing. And I think one of the biggest challenges to planning, you know, over the last few months is, you know, all your core assumptions of kind of out the window, your close rates, your CPLs, your everything else that goes into modeling a scenario. For the most part, you know, so much has changed, it's really hard to predict. So we're starting to double down on secondary KPIs that, you know, you normally only look at when things go bad or really good and things like that. And we're putting a lot more attention in ensuring we understand and then are able to react in real time. You know, so I think that's one of the things we're doing. We're also trying to keep an eye on long-term, right? Like, this isn't the new norm, hopefully, right? And so there's things happening in the macro environment that we are trying to predict, and we are trying to predict when. And also planning for what does that mean, so that we don't just react to week over week, month over month. We're really starting to think about, you know, what do we need to be doing for February, March of next year, when things will be in, you know, a different place, hopefully, than they are now.
Yeah, that's similar to what I was going to chime in with in my thoughts. Just the idea of KPIs and how they've changed a little bit and how that informs planning. We've developed a bit of a SWOT team that's doing a much more frequent cycle of different top of funnel metrics for us to help us better ascertain what's working and then quickly pivot our plans based on sort of those leading indicator metrics, rather than waiting to see what revenue is going to be produced. Because like everyone's sort of been saying, that traditional revenue streams are unpredictable right now, and we're seeing spikes or lags or delays and stuff like that. So turning more to those secondary leading indicator metrics is something that we've been doing as well, and then using that to sort of inform quick pivots in our monthly plans and our biweekly plans. Let's move on to our last discussion question. Good sort of lessons learned, pitfalls. information to share with our audience. So if everyone can just share a pitfall or two to avoid on your journey to better planning. What have you learned so far along this process, and what are some things that you'd recommend other marketers potentially avoid moving forward? So Doug, I'll actually hop back to you to go first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is don't overreact. I think your natural inclination in a time like this is to cut and pause and wait to see. And I think that's a mistake. As we all know, marketing is it's a machine. And when you turn it off, when you slow it down, oftentimes it's hard to get it back to where it was before. And I think we have to just understand this isn't the new normal. Things are changing and evolving, but at some point, we're going to get back to business and we're going to be in a better place. So what we're trying not to do is overreact and not rely on current assumptions to plan, future business. So that's one of the big things we're doing.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I haven't heard, to be honest, too many people take that mindset. I think it's a healthy one. The idea of don't forget that there will be a future and a long-term plan. We're all so focused on the short term, which we have to be, but yeah, don't also, at least at a certain level, take your eye off what that future is going to look like. Cool. Marina, what's your advice on this one?
Yeah, I completely agree with Doug on this. I think, marketing is more important now than ever before, and not marketing isn't really an option because things are changing so quickly. I think, it's making sure that you have a plan in place to be ready when the market is ready to bounce back, and then versus that catch-up plan, right? So, and then I think I would add to that too is have a good sales enablement strategy where our sales organization, they've shifted how they're selling as well, where, we've been a very in-person type of organization, even on the sales side of the house, where we're meeting with clients at the top of the funnel, middle, as well as bottom of the funnel. So that is kind of something that we have been, traditionally good at, but then now everyone's at home and everyone's using video, the video fatigue, things like that. But having a good sales enablement plan in place is critical to make sure that your sales team continues to generate the sales that they need. And then marketing is helping to facilitate those conversations at the top, middle, and bottom of the funnel.
Yeah, that's a great one. I've got some thoughts on that. Let's pass it off to Garth, and then I'll kind of circle back at the end. Garth, what's your advice here?
Yeah, so I mean, my number one is really just be ready, to change and have a methodology to support that, any strategy shifts, so that the strategy shifts, but did the execution happen, and is there a methodology for tracking all the work that impacts, right? And that means, having some standardized workflows that how long it's going to take if you make that kind of a strategy shift. Because what happens is people get really attached to their plans, and when things need to change quickly, it can be a huge stressor amongst the organization unless there's that process in place. The only other thing I'd just say is I like what Marina and Doug are saying about thinking to the future. And as you think about that, one best practice that I kind of learned when I was at Microsoft was to treat Q1 of each new year as Q5 of the previous year. Because what I see just inevitably, if you look at the spend, it drops across almost every channel. And this is universally, not just my companies, but across every channel, the spend drops in Q1. And I mean, especially like for us, we're going after enterprise companies. That's actually when you most need leads if you're going to close them within that year. So telling everybody, hey, just keep doing what you're doing until the new plan is fully in place. There's budget there, keep spending. Don't forget to keep spending is so important, because I just see that over and over again. There's this tendency to just have this little gap there. And as Doug said, you turn that machine off, it's hard to get it back on, and you can miss a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? It's like we have this mindset of like run to the finish line, Q4 ends, and we're all like, okay, we're good for like a quarter. And it's like, no, you gotta keep pushing, you gotta keep going. Don't let the ball drop there. I wanted to chime in on the alignment piece and the sales enablement piece. One thing that we learned pretty early on is how important it is to maintain that and build it in a new way, both with the remote working and the idea that marketing plans are different. Whereas before, sales and marketing had good alignment, but we were both used to the same sort of cadence of marketing campaigns and how the two teams would interact with each other. We early on fell into a little bit of a trap of marketing, figure out like, okay, what's our new plan? These channels have changed. Okay, we're going to go like into our marketing cave and build our new plan. And then here it is, and sales was doing everything they needed to do as well to adapt to virtual only selling. And we realized, we've gone off and planned separately. We didn't used to do this. Let's hit pause and figure out how to rethink our collaboration in a remote world and in a world where we don't have the playbooks that we used to rely on. And so it took a little bit of learning the hard way. And then we've gotten into a really solid cadence of planning jointly together and looking holistically at how can our teams jointly capitalize on as much revenue creation as possible right now, rather than having it be like, okay, what's our marketing strategy and what's our sales strategy? And sales enablement became a big piece of our marketing strategy, more so than it has been in the future, because it's not just our world that's been disrupted, right? It's the sales world that's been disrupted as well. So I'd say that's my biggest piece of advice, to sort of do a gut check and a health check on the sales and marketing alignment, and maybe tweak it a little bit as needed for this new situation. So we're wrapping things up. We're just about at the end of our time for today. We've had a couple of questions come in, so I'm gonna sort of save time here for one or two of those, and then if other questions follow afterwards, please send them to us by email, and we'll make sure to follow up. But I've got one question that came in here. This one looks like it's for Marina. And with field events not happening, which was previously a big part of your strategy, how are you incorporating sort of more specifically some of that face-to-face interaction into the sales world and sales enablement?
Yeah, great question. I think that we're trying to make sure that we're being sensitive of our prospect and our customers' time, where right now I think everyone's going through that virtual fatigue, the video fatigue. And so what we've come up with is a couple of programs. One is, having coffee with us, right? So I think coffee is a very low expectation type of activity that they're like, yep, I'll have coffee with you. We'll send them something so that they're having coffee together and having that initial discussion. Same thing for lunch, where, typically in the past when we're going out and having those in-person meetings, we are actually, at a lunch meeting, we're having that discussion. Now lunch is on us. So we'll have the lunch deliver and then they're having lunch together. So again, low pressure type of conversation that they're having. So we're using those type of methods to make sure that we're engaging with our customers and the way that they want, but it's not just me spewing on, Zoom with you for an hour and telling you exactly what, Comcast Business can bring to the table and what's our value proposition. So I think that's one. Two is what I said about the sales enablement is we've put together a ton of toolkits basically and sales enablement kits for all of our programs so that sales doesn't have to go there and actually recreate some of the messaging, recreate some of those invitations on InMail as well as Outlook, phone scripts, things like that. So we've created all that for them so that it's really a copy and paste and personalize where they need to get those out to their prospects and their customer base. So those are the things that we're trying to help our sales organization with to make sure that they're having those really engaged dialogues with their audience.
Those are some great tips. We're all so hungry for that human engagement. That's not just trying to sell me a product or force my story on you, but yeah, have it be more relaxed and formal. Some great tips in there. This one probably well suited for Doug. You were talking a lot about your different channel mix and then how you're pursuing new industries or segments based on what's happening in the markets. How do you think about managing your budgets towards this sort of shifting channel mix and different personas? Are there different tactics you're doing or how do you sort of evaluate where to place the most investment, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, it's probably one thing that hasn't really changed for us. I mean, we test everything. So I would say test, and figure out what's going to work, regardless of what's going on in the macro environment. I think what we've seen, we have a annual operating plan with some preconceived assumptions around, how much of our volume is going to come from organic and paid and affiliates and a variety of other channels. And we're constantly trying to predict and test if that's going to play out. And if not, what do we need to do to manage to our budgets? I'd say the biggest tests for us in this time have been, a little different in that, most of those channels are digital. So not a ton has changed there, but where we apply those channels has been quite different, right? And so learning, obviously, restaurants and hospitality are segments that are, hard hit by a pandemic. Let's not send them emails and target them on Facebook with promotional offerings and things like that. Similar, even early in the pandemic, we saw, there was a lot of difference by state. Some states were opening up sooner, different laws and so on. So we started to do a little bit of geo-targeting to figure out, hey, what's our probability across each of these different segments. So I think that's kind of how we've looked at it. And I think Marina mentioned this, getting really good at, not just what we're doing, but follow through on enablement and alignment across all our orgs so that we are taking advantage of every opportunity to, continue to grow and move forward.
Great, some good tips in there. We'll do one more. And this one, Garth, I'll give to you, but if anyone else wants to chime in afterwards as well, please do, because it's not one that we've actually touched upon yet. But hiring in the concept of in-house teams, how does hiring play into your planning processes at this point, either your contingent workforce or your full-time employees?
Yeah, that's a good one. And, probably our Zenefits friend here has some insights into that based on what they've seen in the market. But just from my own perspective, I do think there is obviously it's still a pretty hot market, amazingly, for tech. And so, it's not actually that easy to recruit, which surprised me. And luckily, some people are still willing to make moves, despite, not being able to onboard in person and that kind of thing. So I think those are some of the biggest challenges I see is how do you keep people excited in a time when they can't come into the office? And that was a cool thing for, especially in a startup world, of like being together. And then also, how do you make sure that you're leveraging the capabilities that might exist in some of your vendor resources? So, yeah. Doug, if you wanted to add anything there, you guys probably have done some research on this too.
Yeah, no, love the shout out. Appreciate that, Garth. And certainly if you're a small business, Zenefits helps, think through a lot of these different scenarios, gig workers versus full-time employees, how to do a lot of that. And I think for us, very similar to Garth, we're looking at how do we augment our current teams? How do we make sure we've got the right resources in the right positions for this, this time? And also how do we scale up fast in the event that we see, the top of funnel increasing without having to go, source, recruit, onboard, new salespeople, things like that. So we have adapted some additional strategies just to figure out how to augment our current resources, with contingent workers and so on.
I'm going to chime in because I have one thought, and then Marina, of course, it looks like you've got some thoughts too. One thing that we did is restructure internally some of the teams we've got to address the needs we have today, but doing that in tandem with thinking, like many companies, we're not going on a huge hiring spree right now, but thinking through, okay, what is our hiring potential or open headcount potentially going to look like now, 6 months, 12 months from now? And then how do we restructure the teams for the business needs today, but also to grow when we are ready to grow more aggressively in the future? Because what we did realize is that the way the marketing teams were structured prior to the pandemic hitting, just wasn't the right mix for the current marketing world and the marketing world of the future. And so redefining roles and responsibilities a little bit, and looking where we really need to build up competencies in-house, and what areas maybe at this point could be outsourced to agencies or partners. Marina, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the way that we're looking at hiring is how are we addressing the market? Right now, we're starting to pivot into that virtual, that digital. So, before that, it was all a lot of in-person tech field activities. So we want to make sure that we're also addressing that from a hiring perspective, where we're pivoting. So our hiring goals and our hiring needs and expertise is going to shift with that. And for us too is, we're not going out on a hiring spree either, but we want to make sure that we're taking care of the employees that we already have within Comcast, and then we're shifting some of the roles and responsibilities within Comcast. There's a lot of lateral movement within Comcast, that you're from one division to another division, or, different business units basically. So taking care of our internal staff first to make sure that are we hiring from within, and then going outside. So I think that's kind of the shift that we've made pretty significantly on our side, but then really hiring to our gap where, there's certain things that I'm great at and I know that I'm good at, but there's certain things that I'm just not, right? And so that's where you need to be very self-aware of who you need to hire and what you need to hire for to make sure that you're successful, not only now based on all the different changes, but into what your 2021 plan needs to look like.
Yeah, I think that is a great note to end on. Some excellent recommendations there. Wanted to mention to everyone, Allocadia has just officially launched a planning crash course to help all marketers navigate not just the annual planning process, but more iterative agile planning in the world of today and the world of the future. So we'll make sure you've got all the info for that if you're interested in signing up. Really, really quick and easy to up-level your planning skills in just a few minutes a day. Wanted to say a big thank you again to our panelists, to Marina and Doug and Garth. Thank you. Some really great insights shared today. Thank you to all our listeners, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.